We are on.
All right. This is a story. That was a metaphor. This is a story that has been told many times. This is a story that has been told many times. This is a story that has been told many times. That last one was a true story. The first one was a setup. And the one in the middle was a self-fulfilling prophecy. The world is made of language. That's a quotation. The trickster made this world. That one is a myth. The trickster is an archetype, a sophisticated model. The trickster can't be trusted. Okay, that one's tautological. The trickster has a silver tongue. The trickster is a liar. The trickster gave us language, drugs, technology, and fire, knowing full well that we'd fuck it up, with no sense of remorse. Because there's only one way to evolve, and that's let nature take its course. That was a poem. And the next one's a riddle. The trickster loves a good riddle. How do you spin up a goddess out of stardust and sunshine? Once upon a time, a bunch of fairies threw a very fancy party. It was a fundraising party, wouldn't you know it? And they invited all of their potential donors and sponsors to come and listen to them talk and watch them rub each other's backs and toot each other's horns, if you know what I mean. And they neglected to invite and welcome in and honor that one sort of embarrassing and brash and perhaps a little bit less than mediagenic fairy, who often laughed just a little too loud and sometimes drank just a little too much, and who occasionally scratched herself in rude places, and who had been known from time to time to say the quiet parts out loud. This is a fairy tale, obviously, but I don't need to finish telling it, because you already know the way it ends, don't you? You know the way that stories always go. They tell themselves, really. TLDR, surprise, surprise, she shows up anyway and she pranks the living shit out of their fancy pants fundraising party. Now, the trickster is a little bit hard to describe on account of the fact that it does not, exist, except in the sense that it does. And like other manifestations of psychedelic concern, there are multiple ways to frame one's understanding of it. For instance, there's a lot of folks out there who think of the trickster as some sort of a god. And that's totally legitimate. It's certainly one of the archetypal energies that arises now and then when one has congress with entheogens. In fact, let's get a show of hands here. Or better, let me hear your lovely voices. When I point the T-horn at you, like this, not yet. I want, if you think the trickster qualifies as a god, in any theological, metaphysical, metaphorical, allegorical, factual, fictional, figurative, or in any other sense, in any system whatsoever, I want you to all think hard about the current state of the for-profit, Western medicalized model of psychedelic dissemination. And I want you to give me your very best, oh God. Ready? Oh God! That's you. Come on, spectators. Let me try it again. Oh God! Yeah. Oh God, indeed. The word God makes a lot of folks uneasy, especially folks who were raised in and around the Levantian traditions in which evolution is not a thing and in which, in fact, the Creator God explicitly does not want us to evolve because it is afraid that we will take over if we do. Like we mustn't let the humans get at the fruit of that other tree because that would be like letting your AI singularize on you or something, and that would never do. The trickster, on the other hand, is the evolutionary principle at work, or rather at play. Prometheus created humankind, that tricksy trickster, and then he gave us fire to play with and set us on the path to develop technology and art and the sciences, and he got into a great deal of trouble with the other gods for giving us the leg up in this manner and for taking our part against them. And so, in this respect, the trickster can also be thought of as the devil, the light bringer. And that's okay too, because the trickster kind of like to have it both ways, you know what I mean? So, I'd like us all to take a deep breath. Take another one. And if you find that you're in any way pleased that we have wrested psychosomic fire from the gods and that we are preparing to unleash it upon the straight world that is clearly badly in need of an evolution in consciousness, when I point the T-horn at you, I want to hear you all give the devil his due by shouting, "Huzzah for the devil!" Because that'll make people look in here, okay? All right. 1, 2, 3. Huzzah for the devil! That was fun. Now, if you fancy yourself too sophisticated for that sort of religious malarkey, and you can frame the trickster as an aspect of the unconscious mind or of the collective unconscious, if you prefer, that is responsible for breaking down the calcified illusions of the ego that are no longer serving us and making room for something new and unexpected, and often wildly beautiful and evolutionary to occur. And it's got a broad and profoundly subtle and sometimes rather strikingly unsubtle sense of humor. I don't want to start any blasphemous rumors. That was a song. I guess it don't really count. Our playa itself is a manifestation of the trickster. The playa is a synchronistic vortex. And it is true indeed that the playa doth provide. If you love and respect the playa, it will give you exactly what you need, right when you need it. But the playa giveth and the playa taketh away with the same utterly implacable hand. It can be a tough and fickle mistress. What you really need the most right now might be something you do not want at all. And it will double down if you whine about it being unfair. It will utterly disregard your silly safe word. The playa is not polite or sentimental. The playa says, fuck your burn. The playa says, whoopsie. And the playa says, ha ha. You cannot tame the playa, and you cannot control it. If you are wily and well-trained, and if you perform all of the necessary rituals and make all of the requisite sacrifices, you can mitigate against a broad swath of its more pedestrian and well-mapped-out traps. Like, you can drink water in what seems like excessive amounts, and you can wear sunscreen, and you can stake all of your most cherished belongings down with rebar. You can make friends with your neighbors. You can sleep at least 6 out of every 24 hours. You can bring extra bike parts. You cannot take serotoninogenic drugs before Thursday. And you can, if you can, maintain a sense of humor about its pranks, both big and small. It is meet and proper to perform these rites of warding, but one must do it in the spirit of obeisance and respect. One must not engage the playa in a battle. You surely know how that will end. You can invite it into your heart, but you don't have to. Just like you don't have to invite it into your yurt. It's maybe better if you don't explicitly do that, in fact. But you must accept that it is truly omnipresent and that try as you like, you cannot entirely banish it. You can seal all of the seams up with glass tape and you can undress yourself in the airlock, but the playa will always find a way to get in. And it will bless you. And it will leave its mark upon you and upon all of your shit forever after. You cannot ever fool the playa. It can see right through your disguise. It will unmask you to yourself and to your loved ones. It will bring all of your festering crap up to the surface where it can hopefully begin to decompose in the presence of air and sunlight. It will invalidate all of your most cherished assumptions. It has 1,000 ways to break down the calcified illusions of the ego. You may rely upon it to do so, but you must never ever trust it in the naive sense. No matter how kind it's always been to you thus far, you must not believe you are its darling and that it would never really hurt you. The playa fucking owns you. It is an evolutionary force, and evolution doesn't pull too many punches. If you honor it, however, and if you truly love it and respect it, and if you ask it with sincere humility to give you whatever it is that you most need to be given, and to take from you whatever it is that most needs to be taken away from you, no matter how much you may cherish it and cling to it. And if you surrender yourself unto it in its mercies completely, having taken all of the recommended precautions, in the presence of a licensed and experienced therapist, of course, and in conjunction with the more traditional therapeutic modalities, it can and will change your life for the better, most of the time. So I don't need to try to school you a lot about the machinations of the trickster and the way that it liked to do you. It is in fact exactly the way that psychedelic drugs like to do you in general. So when I presented about this at Psychedelic Science in Colorado in 2023, I figured that I could just say, it's like that, and that they would understand. But upon my arrival there, I found myself uncomfortably uncertain that the vast majority of attendees at the biggest and most self-important psychedelic conference in the world would actually, really, truly, deeply fucking know how psychedelics like to do you. I mean, do you? Do you? I mean, some of you know, you're in the now, you're in the wow, 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 whoa, 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 no, ho, 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 ha, ha, and ha, ha, and ha, ha. And yes, the great ha-ha, the sacred swirly, the high holy kick in the pants that'll twist you and turn you and say that'll learn you. You know it's all part of the dance. You expect it to check you, inject some confusion, detect and inspect your egoic occlusions, reject your projections and wreck your illusions. It's deaf misdirection, deflecting delusions. Despite your objections and abject confusion, you accept its direction and respect its conclusions because we suspect that it is mostly correct when it comes right down to it. That was pandering to the peanut gallery. To my trickster posse in the house! Because like I said, we know what kind of dusty wind is beginning to blow. And many of us are smugly smirking at the various wholly predictable quagmires that it seemingly blindly has stumbled into, too, because you damn well know none of these corporadelic douchebags see it coming, am I right? They're just pouring out buckets of money like pouring water on a grease fire, and they're jockeying for position so they can get a bigger piece of the pie, but unbeknownst to them, of course, it turns out that the pie has been spiked with actual psychedelic drugs. And all of the obvious things are happening, and most certainly will continue to happen. Because of course they are. But have you ever noticed that these predicaments are always both much more simple than they seem, and simultaneously far more complex at the same time? It turns out to be the case in my experience that many of the top-tier investor types and almost all of the just straight-up philanthropists actually really do know at least something about the whole herd of buck-ass naked woolly mammoths that are standing around in the middle of the conference room. And they just don't know what to say because they believe in the work. Because again, it's all so true. And so they've simply tried to write it out of the narrative in the medicalized movement. And we have developed what I like to call the make drugs boring again rap. You know how it goes. These drugs have been demonized and are in fact wonderful medicines. And they're godsends for people who are struggling with PTSD and with depression and anxiety and OCD and autism and end-of-life anxiety and with generalized dysphoria and who aren't getting along with their partners. And of course, it's all true. Psychedelic drugs, when taken in therapeutic context in the presence of a licensed and qualified therapist and as part of a balanced breakfast that includes some more traditional therapeutic modalities, can and will work absolute miracles with respect to all of the conditions I just mentioned, and a whole host of other conditions as well, when they do. Just like Neuralink is going to stoke out paraplegics. Okay, and I mean, yes, right? Yes, these are all very wonderful things. And they are absolutely right about their therapeutic potential. But good God, when are we going to tell them about the bats? Love you, Jamie Whale. Now, don't get me wrong. I wholeheartedly applaud the tireless effort of all my good friends at MAPS who went to the effort, and it was an absolutely enormous amount of effort to jump through every single Murph and Furf and hoop you have to jump through to establish to the satisfaction of a deeply paranoid and actively litigious central government that these things can and indeed do what we all knew that they could do before the studies got started. Like, they had to do a double-blind study, okay? And everybody knows who got the drugs because, of course they do. But they had to do it, and they did it, and it took many hundreds of people, many thousands of hours, and cost many millions of dollars to do it. And they're human heroes, and they are to be commended for their efforts. And I do so commend them. But, like I said, it was expensive to do all of those very necessary studies. And it necessitated one hell of a positive PR blitz and positive media attention to keep all those donations rolling in and to prime the political environment to accept these things as legitimate medicines. And by golly, they really got it. It's been incredible how positive the media has been. You can say psychedelics are a very good thing indeed on TV. And so long as you cast the appropriate spell, which goes like, in the presence of a licensed and experienced therapist and in conjunction with etc., you will most likely be agreed with, because it's true. But it's not like the whole truth, is it? And you can't sweep the trickster under the rug, because that is just exactly what it does. It says the quiet part out loud. and it dissolves the artifice of ego. And I think that it's been waiting. While we pretend that we have banished it, we're writing it out of the narrative. When we say, sure, a lot of squirrely shit has happened when psychedelics were abused for exploration, or God forbid when they were used recreationally, but that was all not within the context, and fine. You can say whatever you gotta say so as not to scare the straights and the investors and to keep the gravy train a-coming. But like that pie, the gravy has been spiked with actual psychedelic drugs. And the cracks in the facade are now beginning to show. And this is a good thing. Psychedelics are inherently evolutionary technology, and as such, they are the rightful province of the trickster. And the joke, I think, is going to be on us if we neglect to do it honor. And I'm not even talking about the freaky-deaky trans-dimensional alien stuff and all the other somewhat outre revelations, true, false, and meaningless, that are bound to, how shall we say, strain the ontologies of some simple, honest folk who just need some help to get a grip. All that'll happen, yeah, for sure. And it's going to mess some people up in some ways, and it's going to straighten them out in some other ways, and that's probably par for the course. You know, okay, this guy now believes in elves, and he's convinced that it's all a simulation, but he's much nicer to his kids, and that's what really matters, right? We all have some whack-ass ideas, and I mean, who's to say he's even wrong? But no, I'm not even talking about the kinds of tricks that psychedelics themselves are going to play on our innocent clients, who are just trying to find a little peace and healing, but rather the colossal and collective ass-whooping that many members of the above-board psychedelic community have pretty much all just lined up and dropped trow for, bent right on over, they better get their heads down in the trough. And I told my audience at Sci-Sci that of course I wasn't really talking about any of them, but I imagined that they could clearly see that damn near everybody else is really cruising for a fall, right? Because it is they who have donned the Promethean mantle. They have deputized themselves to be the light bringers, to be the agents of evolution, to bring the psychosomic fire that they have discovered at great peril, very often, at least for themselves, right here in Black Rock City, back to the super tribe at large. So it may heal, inspire, and uplift our floundering species. We are handing out the torches as we speak, in the bright and earnest hope that they may light our way into a saner and more humane collective future, which is about as noble as it gets. But it also means that we are freaking soaking in it. We are taking on the trickster's role. It is amongst us and within us, which means it gets to work us over first and prank us the hardest. This is how it has always been, and I suppose it's always how it should be, since it ain't never been no different. And like I said, we got it coming, and we're damn sure gonna get it, because we desperately need it. It's not like revenge on the trickster's part. It's just a sort of a force of nature that kicks in on its own whenever we start feeling smugly superior about how well positioned we are around the trough there, all just dripping with hubris and damn the externalities. And damn our former allies as well, who have become our competitors. Do you remember when the psychedelic community was all more or less on the same team? Before all the jockeying for position really got started? I mean, we all had different theories and methods, but there wasn't any money in it, so there was nothing to compete for. Put a bunch of money in the middle, and now it's the Hunger Games. And of course it is. It's human nature. It's predictable. It's understandable, even, because we're all a little bit hungry. We've been doing so much with so little for so long, and there is so much good that we can do. And we will do a lot of good, full stop. But we can't stop here, oh no, says the trickster. Along, camaradas. Along, now, all in, all aboard. The magical school bus is here. It is flung wide its doors, and the bus waits for no one. Nor should it, indeed, because you know who drives the bus. That wants to take us all on a ride. Faster, faster. We cannot quit when you're ahead. Evolution is an opportunist. It tries it all, and most of it fails, sometimes spectacularly. But the game is on, the time is here, the curtain is up, the chips are down, it's forward escape, whether we like it or not. Ask the artificial intelligence community. Or fucking hell, just ask the chatbot. Ask it to personify the trickster, and it will tell you that it is coming, and that we must evolve or die. So, by all means, they should try all of the things. But know ye that all of the things are damn sure gonna happen. And this is some of the wisdom that I think the Burning Man community in particular can bring to the conversation, because we're free to tell it like it is. Folks are all freaking out right now, and they're clutching their pearls, and they probably actually should be freaked out about the incidents in which a couple of people who were expecting to have all their sessions videotaped and reviewed have apparently, or at least allegedly, taken advantage of a vulnerable client. That's absolutely horrifying, not least because it begs some very obvious questions. about what the fuck we think is going to happen when these thousands of brand new practitioners who got their integration coach or whatever certifications online during COVID or whatever come online. They have paid their fees, but they have not in every case actually paid their fucking dues, these people. Okay? And transference is a thing, and the gatekeeper God complex situation is totally a thing, and thinking it's okay for you because you are different, and this is a very special situation, is also totally a thing. And it's also often even true, okay, that it would turn out to be fine in this one special situation, which is why we have to be so fucking careful. I mean, I'm not even talking about the relatively small amount of assholes who are rubbing their hands together and how they take advantage of their clients, okay? Fuck those people. Or don't even fuck those people. They don't deserve to be fucked. But the larger problem is all of the people who think that this doesn't apply to them. Because these aren't just their clients. These are their very intimate friends. But it does apply to them. It applies to us all. Why isn't it okay when we're in the underground to get sexual with people we facilitate experiences for, who look up to us and trust us, and who we truly love as human beings? Maybe probably nobody would actually be harmed on the play. Except, of course, for the entire freaking community, because we are the cool kids. Or at least we aspire to be. And if I make an exception for myself, then why shouldn't everybody? So we all need to set a good example as a consent community that is savvy about power dynamics. We need to model all of the rules so that they apply to us more strictly than they do to other people. Even that, because underground is also unsurprisingly absolutely rife with unintentional quote-unquote abuse. And we're not even constrained by the bonds of a legal practice that could result in, say, the losing of our license. So let's try to lock this in. I'm going to say, who does it apply to? I need participation on this. I'm going to say, who do you apply to? Who does it apply to? And you're going to say, it applies to us. When I point the T-horn at you. Ready? Okay. Who does it apply to?
It applies to us.
Who does it apply to?
It applies to us.
Good. Damn well. Better. And you got all these novel psychedelic companies making brand new compounds, right? And again, hooray for that. And they all think, they think that mostly it's going to be okay for people if they do it maybe 4 or 5 times in the presence of a licensed experience, etc. And they're very probably right about that. But what's going to happen when people take 5 times as much, 10 times as often? Well, they're for sure going to find out, because in order to file a patent, you got to publish the synthesis. And we all know that the street finds its own uses for things. And like Palantir wants to patent, what do you call it? What's the name of the one that wanted to patent, like, rocking your baby when it cries? Compass? That's not going to fly, right? I mean, nobody really thinks that's going to fly, but what if it did? What if somebody just didn't do the thing that makes sense? Because somebody else already apparently has gotten the patent on common sense, and they didn't want to be sued, and so they just let the baby cry because they felt that their hands were tied. We in the recreational community have got to stand up and call bullshit bullshit, because somebody has to, and we are the ones who are in the best position to do it, because we have nothing to lose. And if you catch on any of our corporadelic friends jockeying for position and subtly knifing their former allies with a condescending smile on their faces, saying they're competitors, bless their sweethearts, they got the best of intentions, of course, but their way is far more practical and scalable, and when it comes down to it, more profitable. We need to tell them that if that's their game, then they should go play the shit out of it, but remind them that they're painting a big red bullseye on their asses and giving the trickster some rather easy target practice. And if, as a caring individual, you would like to help your corporadelic friends to potentially titrate their gigantic dose of whip ass, it is perhaps not too late for us to help them to repent. I love that word. Repent. Repent! Think again! And that starts with welcoming the trickster into their hearts and straight up asking it to school them, the way that we do here on the playa, and earnestly attempting to cleanse themselves of their hubris and their self-importance and denial, and learn to laugh at themselves at least a little bit in order that they may become a more fitting vessel through which the trickster may assist our fledgling species evolution. We who are in the know must take it upon ourselves to write the trickster back into the narrative. I'm going to try to get really sincere here. Not to say serious. And so, now I want us, as citizens of Black Rock City, and as friends and devotees of the trickster, to help me to formally invite it to the motherfucking party on behalf of the entire psychedelic community. Because it sure as shit is going to show up for the hangover. So, first we're going to try to get its attention so that it will hear us as we pray for its intercession. When I point the tea horn at you again, not yet, I want to hear a really loud and raucous, oh God. Oh God! And one more time, let's hear your very best. Huzzah for the devil! Huzzah for the devil! This is an invitation. This is an invocation. This is a celebration, an activation, an act of grace, an act of admission, an act of contrition or humble submission. We are begging for your loving lack of mercy. Trickster, please be with the psychedelic renaissance in their hour of our reckoning. Every time I point the tea horn like this, you say, Trickster, be with us, okay?
Trickster, be with us.
Trickster, be with us. We are your humble servants.
We are your humble servants.
No, Trickster, be with us. That's all you. Trickster, be with us. You are most welcome at the party, and you are very much needed at the party. Trickster, be with us. Trickster, please be with us in the corporate boardrooms as you are with us on the playa, so that we can go into this with our eyes most fully open, keenly aware that there will occasionally be some spectacular failures. Trickster, be with us. We honor you for bringing the ultimately inevitable reality of our so very human weaknesses and vulnerabilities very painfully to light in the very beginning, so that the dangers that we try to sweep under the rug can come to the surface and decompose in the presence of air and sunlight, and we can learn from our mistakes and try to enshrine yet more effective safeguards, while yet we're still in our gestation. Trickster, be with us. Please allow the fruits of our hubris to devolve upon ourselves and not upon our innocent clients. Trickster, be with us. Please give us what we need and take away from us whatever needs to be taken away, no matter how much we may cling to it. Trickster, be with us. We are doing the good work as unworthy as we are, as swollen with hubris and with ego as we are. We are carrying the light of evolution within our yearning, aching, upward-beating hearts. And we need and welcome the wild and tricksy spirit that has always been in the light of evolution. 3 times. Trickster, be with us. And again, Trickster, be with us. And again, Trickster, be with us. So might it be on and on, for forward on, forever and ever, such a amen. I'm in.
Amen.
And since Mitchell let me go early, I still got 6 minutes, so if you have any questions, I shall attempt to extemporize. No questions, you know about that. You don't want to see me try to extemporize anyway. Yes, I can. Must have some questions. Thoughts? Comments? All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How many years have you been working with psychedelics as a personal practice?
29.
Wow.
It's 21 and 50. And pretty consistently, as Mitchell said, I was a psychedelic jackass in my 20s. Made all the beginner's mistakes. This was before there was stuff like heroin. You know, so all you had was, we didn't have internet. You know, if you lived in a small town and there was a, you know, the library had maybe 3 books on psychedelics, and one of them said drugs are bad, okay? And like one was a history of the 60s. And one had 3 pages missing, so all you had was like, my cousin says you take 4 of them. You know? So beginner's mistakes are easy to make. Yeah.
No, you wait, baby. I have a question for you, and it's important. Life or death? What do you do when friends and family see you detaching because you're on your psychedelic journey, and if one of them, then 2 of them, and then 3 of them said that you have a drug problem, and then you actually have a drug problem because if there's 3 people around you that said that you have a drug problem, you actually do, at least their perception. So how can we deactivate that to protect ourselves?
I mean, how do I, if all of your friends are telling you something, maybe you should pay attention. The only time that it ever happened to me was this period where somebody had given me in like 1997, like 1,000 hits of 5-MeO DMT, and I was just packing it in the little poochie on the windowsill in the morning and just sort of visit to the Great Noli every morning before I got out of bed, and like, I was starting to predict the future, like what song would play on the radio next, like in the world, because it was what had played in my room at the time. I'm like, and now it's gonna be Dock of the Bay, and then a car would go by playing Dock of the Bay, and they were like, whatever you're doing, you need to stop, right? And I was like, no, but I called it. You see that I called, whatever you're doing, you need to stop, right? But when all of your friends are telling you that whatever you're doing, you need to stop, you should stop. I stopped for a while. I didn't go crazy much. And, didn't come back to it for several years after, everybody you love who can see you from the outside. Now, sometimes they're just wrong. If you're living in a, place where your community or your church group or your, work environment just really doesn't understand these things, there may be some education could be applied. But, like, if your real friends who know you think you ought to take a break, you don't have to stop forever, but you could take a break. That's why we have friends. Friends don't let friends go crazy.
Yeah.
Did you want to?
Yeah. So this one's just kind of interested in your personal thoughts around the term psychedelic renaissance. There's also like psychedelic revolution, and
I think the underground's still the psychedelic revolution. Like, we did it. I'll get back to finish the question, but like, we did a survey. We're trying to figure out at Airwood like how much LSD is taken down in your average festival weekend in the world, right? Because 99.99 something percent of psychedelic experiences happen in the field, and it's more than there was in 1969 put together. So we're having a psychedelic revolution every weekend. But the psychedelic renaissance was sort of just the easy branding for like, the medicalization model and the money coming into it. We can use this therapeutically, and it's sort of becoming popular to be able to say on TV that it's a very good thing indeed, as long as you just cast a spell.
right. And I guess that's part of the question, right? It's this like how things are framed, and with the idea of a renaissance, it's like that it had it's coming back, or when we think about it, it's like, oh, we always think of the 60s and Leary and all of these, like, forgive me,
right,
but like these old white men,
right.
and a lot of the entheogenic or psychedelic experience actually has very deep roots in indigenous culture, and never went away. It was always there.
It goes back to like, language and art probably.
Yeah, and so just like somehow this use of the term Renaissance somehow, for a lot of the communities that I'm connected to, just like feel like maybe it's also leaving out part of that history, and when we think about like the way that things are portrayed in the media too, and in like this big conversation that's happening.
Maybe reframing, like, like it's not in all cultures, but in the culture that makes TV, or whatever cultures that make TV, it's been largely reframed as there's people who've only heard of it that way, who've actually first heard about psychedelics as therapeutic, and don't even know, like about the bats. To say nothing of the, like entities and aliens and the big herd of woolly mammoths in the middle of the conference room. They're like, shh, Barry, just shut up about that till we get the check signed. Right. Well, on the ayahuasca track, you can kind of like code switch and talk about stuff over in the ayahuasca track. But like, it's definitely, because that does click into the longer term tradition. You can sort of talk about framing it in these different ways, but. Like I said, over in the main track, this is good for autism, and it is.
Well, and I think that in terms of like when we're talking about it in these large, like big conversations, I think it's also important to frame that it's therapeutic use, yes, but it's not just like use some MDMA with your therapist. Like, people have been in transcendental states as a way of like moving human consciousness forward for so long, and like that has like value as well.
Well, most therapy is self-therapy and community therapy. I think that most of what we actually do when we talk to our friends, most of the actual processing that we do gets done in underground ways too, which I'm not knocking therapy, right? But of course that's like I said, there's 99.99% of it is that. At first it was, that indigenous vibe where these are spirit teachers and plants that help us, and it got reframed, by this people that first came across it first, like kind of like Western white folk, it's like maybe this is psychomimetic, like it like shows us what psychosis would be like, and then maybe it's this is lenses into the collective unconscious, or to like aspects of our psyche that we don't normally have access to, and then it was like no, these would give us access to states with a Sanskrit name. These they were not in fact verbal constructs without a reference. Surprise, surprise, right? And then now it's sort of like, oh no, these are medicines for right? But because the profit motive is so strong, they have advertising dollars, in fact, to put that message out. So, it's drowning out a lot of other messages right now, I think. I think I'm done. Are you, yeah.